Giordano?
Yes, of course I can. Welcome, everybody. We're having a conversation. The podcast.
Don't worry
can
about
wait.
us. The podcast
Don't worry
can
about
wait. Don't worry.
Hey, welcome to Beat Your Addiction podcast with John Giordano. I'm your co-host, Scott Jones. We got our special guest, Megan. What is your last name?
Potter.
Potter. I knew that. Megan Potter is our special.
And she's JC's clinical director.
That's right. JC Recovery.
Right?
First of all, before we start, we want to talk about what's going on in the world of addiction, world of recovery, the world of mental health treatment.
And the world of treatment,
treatment all around. And, maybe talk about some things that didn't work, some things that do work, some things that don't work too well. We're going to talk a little bit about everything like that. I want to remind you, please, the only way this show is successful is if you subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends and hit the reminder so that way you know when our next shows are coming up. It's very important that you do that. And if you need more information, go to johnjgiordano.com. It's right there at the bottom of your screen. Check it out. Now, John, Megan is the clinical director over at JC Recovery, which is the place you got involved with a year ago, I think, right?
I'm part owner,
About a year ago, you got involved. Give us a description of JC Recovery real quick, just so everybody, some people might have heard before, but let's tell them.
It's the land of Oz. That's number one.
Good Lord.
It's a faith-based program that we now instituted holistic approaches. And what does that mean? A comprehensive approach to addiction and mental health. And we do so many different things now that most treatment centers, unfortunately, do not do. I'd like Megan to talk about the mental health part.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And then I'll talk about the holistic part. And we'll do that for our guests. And why treatment, for the most part, may or may not work for you. Okay. And what are some of the pitfalls of treatment? What's some of the pluses for treatment? What do you have to do after treatment? What goes on in most people that are in treatment's minds? What do I do when I go home? I don't know if I want this. I don't know if I can do this. All these different things that go on in our minds. Because I know what went on in my mind. And while I was in treatment, my wife was out there.
Scary place.
I didn't even know. I said to myself, I wonder if she's cheating on me. I wonder what's going on at home. So there's a lot of different variables in treatment that cause people to want to go back out, or AMA means against medical advice and leave treatment. So what we want to do with this show today is we're going to give you different perspectives of what's the things that interfere with treatment and what's the things that cause people to leave treatment.
Perfect. And while you're watching the show, I'll pop this up a couple of times. 844-524-6873. Give them a call or go to jcrecoverycenter.com if you'd like to learn more about JC Recovery in Hollywood, Florida here. And, we'd love to have you ask questions and check things out. And certainly if you're watching a replay, go on the website and check out JC Recovery. Megan Potter. I got the last name. Potter. Clinical director. You've been there how long now? About 8 months?
Where are we at now? Are we November? No, we're October.
We're October.
I've been there 7 months.
7 months. All right. That's good. John, she had an impact from day one, didn't she?
Let me tell you something. I am so proud to have her work for us. And I'm not just saying that. Because the bottom line is I don't listen to what people say. What's what they do.
Yeah.
Okay. And she helped pull everything together. She's training the therapist. She's implementing different protocols and different things and standards of care. And this is what we need in a treatment center. And, you can have a caring treatment center, but if you don't have all the other pieces, unfortunately, then we don't get paid. Okay. We don't get paid. We can't have a treatment center.
Yeah.
So, it's balancing business and altruism and love and all that stuff. It's very difficult. People don't understand. I remember when I was in treatment, I was counting how many people were there and how much money they were making. But there was only one problem. I didn't see how much money was going out.
That's true.
I just saw what was coming in, what I thought was coming in.
Yeah, it's not cheap to run a treatment center.
First of all, it's overregulated.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, what happens is the insurance companies, their job is not to pay you. Our job is to get paid, all right, and give good treatment. So it's very difficult, okay, the way the system works, because everyone's vying to get paid so we can keep treating people.
Absolutely. Now, Megan, you came on, coming up on 8 months, I guess now. You come from a mental health background, right?
Yeah, I started in the field as a case manager, actually, because I wasn't from the area. I'm from upstate New York, by where you're from.
Yeah, there we go, upstate New York.
Tell them what a case manager is for our audience that doesn't even know what that is.
Well, down here, we have targeted case management, and it's for people with severe and persistent mental illnesses. And what we basically do is you help clients who have mental illnesses and or substance abuse, and you link them to community services that help them to stay stable. For example, there's programs in Broward County where you can apply for free bus passes, and that way they have easy to transport to make sure they get to their appointments, being able to get them linked up to food banks, unlimited income. For people who get SSI and SSDI, their income is limited. Can you imagine living in the state of Florida, especially in South Florida, when you get a monthly check from the government for $800 and you're supposed to live on
And we
that?
help you with this at our treatment center, by the way.
Right. So case management links you with the services you need on the outside,
right? Also jobs,
including jobs and
Right.
court issues as well.
Absolutely.
You help
I was in mental
negotiate
health
that.
court. I was in drug court. I was able to help clients follow up with what they needed to do. So it's kind of like a support person for them to be able to help them navigate the system, because it's extremely difficult to find assistance. And I did that for a few years, got into residential treatment, and then I ultimately got into mental health, and I've kind of been stuck ever since. And my background's in substance abuse. I'm a licensed clinician. I'm a certified MCAP, Master's Certified Addictions Professional. And I'm a newly qualified supervisor for LMHC interns. So yes, the majority of my background is
LMH is
licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida. I started more with mental health and substance abuse. I've been kind of stuck with it ever since, but I've worked at every level of care in the system itself, and I've kind of learned as I've went. I have a very different background as far as work goes than most clinicians that I know, because I started at the bottom and learned the system on my way up. And I got to learn how hospitalizations work versus how outpatient settings work, PHPs, PSRs, IOPs. So I kind of have a lens to how to be able to assess a client to get them the best services that they need in order to maximize their potential for success. And being a good clinician, we also have to make those decisions sometimes where it may not be my program or my services that are going to best suit you. I may have to refer you out to make sure that you get the best care that you need. So there's always a lot of assessing, a lot of conversations going on, a lot of networking. This is a big little field, as I like to say. So it may seem like it's really big, but actually there's few pieces that move in between all of them. So keeping good connections and networking is super elemental in order to help your clients.
Let me say something real quick. You mentioned extreme mental health background, understanding the system, care for mental health and care for addiction, very similar. And as a matter of fact, crossover more than they don't cross over. It's all the same thing.
Most addicts, we have a mental health team.
That's what I want to get to real quick, because this is not like old news. This is new news. We're finally addressing the fact that mental health and substance abuse disorders are intertwined in many ways, and more we're finding out more.
I think we're finally admitting it.
But we weren't doing that before.
No.
So for the last 50, 60 years we've been doing these treatment centers. It hasn't been like about mental health. It's been about treat addiction, treat alcoholism.
No.
Now it's starting to really come around.
It changed. Let me tell you.
That's what I'm saying. It's come around.
But what I'm saying is this. And I started in 1985. Back then, you would go to a substance abuse treatment center, and then you would get segued into a mental health treatment center.
Because they thought it was two different animals.
Because they figured it was two different animals. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Okay. Now they finally realized that it's intertwined, and there's different levels of mental health issues. And to the people out there, it's not a curse, okay, to be out of homeostasis, to be out of balance, okay? A lot of people can get a lot of help. Most people, if not all people, can get help with both, okay? So, but you know where it's going, which I've been fighting for years with, it's a three-legged stool, you see. We're looking at mental health, we're looking at substance abuse, but we're not looking at wellness. And that's what we do different in JCs.
But I think that's the difference in the prevention measure that we're kind of going up against, that is not holistically what everybody else follows. So the insurance companies and everybody else likes to push medications. We were just talking about that earlier, and the Insta fixes versus if my insurance covers for you to get to the gym and get access to better food and things like that. That's better prevention in order for people to heal rather than let me just constantly treat symptoms. And as far as addiction and mental health goes, the way that I teach the clients and the way that I teach my clinicians is that addiction is a symptom of an emotional struggle. It's a coping skill. It's a shitty one. It's a maladaptive coping skill.
Yeah.
But it's a coping skill for an emotional state that you struggle with the most, whether it's low self-esteem, whether it's a lot of shame and guilt, whether it's trauma, depression, an actual diagnosis, or just you had an inability to kind of cope with severe emotions as a child and you just found a way to cope through it with addiction. But at the end of the day, it's a symptom of.
Okay. That is the standard methodology. Okay. But there's a but. Depression and anxiety just doesn't come because of psychological problems. It also comes from medical problems, which most people don't know. Okay, you have a low thyroid. All right, you can have depression and anxiety. Try talking to the thyroid. Let me know how that works for you. Okay, leaky gut syndrome, H. pylori infection, hypoglycemia, closed head injuries, heavy metal toxicity. All of these, and I say this in every podcast, are precursors for depression and anxiety. Combined with psychological problems, combined with not eating properly, not drinking enough water, not getting enough sleep, not exercising, not doing all the things you need to keep this body in good shape and homeostasis, those spirituality, that goes out to,
But John,
gone.
those things cost money.
Not really,
but
not really. That's not true either. I'm going to tell you why. Okay, so we always say what costs money. Does it cost money to do push-ups down here? Does it cost money to do jumping jacks or sit-ups? There's your exercise program. Eating, you could go to Wendy's and order a salad. Okay, there are ways to do this because addicts are very resourceful. Okay, they know how to get their drugs. They'll learn how to get the things that they need. Water, you can get water anywhere if you don't drink enough water. Sleep, you could sleep. Okay,
Well,
so
where do you sleep? The cost of living is atrocious.
where do you sleep? Let me put it to you this way: addicts learn to sleep anywhere, under a bridge. Okay.
Well, listen, I'm not going to subscribe to the fact that because you're an addict, you need to accept less than someone who's not an addict.
That's right.
I don't believe that. What I will tell you is this: is that John, you're right, and you're both right in a certain sense.
So we're both coming from two different angles.
But I can't build a treatment center saying that. Listen, I'm going to focus on health and wellness.
You won't get paid
because nobody's going to pay for that. What they've done now is for a short time they started investing in different things, and now they pulled all back. And when I'm saying I'm saying the insurance companies have pulled back into this MAT system, where now it's about
Meds.
Harm reduction, no longer about helping, no longer about curing, no longer about recovery. It has now become about harm reduction. If I can get him off heroin and get him onto Suboxone, where he goes to a doctor,
opioid.
and the pharmacies make money, and the government makes money, and we make money, then it's all cool in the gang. And that's what they're moving towards. And they know for a fact
they're not moving towards it. They're there.
They're there. You're right. But what they know for a fact is that treating mental health and treating the wellness of the body, the wellness of the spirit, the wellness of all of us, the holistic, they know that works. But the thing is, it takes time and it takes money, and they don't want to do that.
No, well, here's the deal. Okay, I'm going to say something that most people could maybe get upset with. Okay,
turn his mic off if it gets bad, guys.
I really feel, okay, this is a horrible thing to say, that the insurance companies rather we die as addicts so they don't have to pay for us anymore.
John, it's part of the gamble that they take. They make an assumption. We'll pay this much out, but we're going to cut off because there's a good bet they're going to die, and then we won't have to spend any more money on that.
Scotty, you have an excellent clinician right here. You have an excellent wellness person right here and clinician, okay? They don't allow us to do what we can do to really help people.
Right.
They won't pay for it. So what we do at JC's, we kind of skirt that, and we send them to cold plunge. We put them in red light therapy and infrared sauna, breath work, yoga.
And that stuff that you're carrying the burden of that.
Well, you see, we carry a lot of burden. And with Megan, which I'm so happy that you're there with us, she trains the therapists because a lot of them. Let me tell you what they learned in school for LCSWs, MSW. Do not disclose. That is the stupidest thing that how are you going to get a rapport with somebody if you don't connect with them? It's going to read from a book.
If you don't personalize it, you can't do it.
No.
But I think the way that it's taught, so as somebody, fortunately, I have been a student intern supervisor for the last 4 years between various universities as students getting their master's degrees. And I'm also now a qualified supervisor of pre-licensed clinicians who are studying to get there. And the thing is you only get 2 years in a master's program and you're learning just a very generic basis. You're not really working with clients. So when they say don't self-disclose, what they're not explaining, I don't think in the right way, it's don't make it about you. If you're self-disclosing,
Right.
you make it about you. That's one
now
thing.
you're talking.
But when, for me, for example, when I'm working with the clients and I try to normalize everything because, I hate even the term mental health because it makes it seem like
there's something lower than what this
it's mental wellness, and it should be something that we all can converse about at any given time because we all have emotions. Like there's not one, 99% of the world has an emotional range that they all feel. And with that being said, they have to learn how to manage those. But for example, I was running group the other night and I was talking to them about life on life's terms and how, you guys look at me like I'm the pinnacle of health, right? That I have all the things, I have all the boxes checked. So I should be so happy. But if I was driving down 95 and ended up having my car wrecked, it's not like I'm sitting on a bunch of money where I can fix that. And my life has some stressors as well. My kid's school will call, oh, your kid's sick. I got to take time off work. Like we all have life stressors that spike us to have anxiety that kind of throw us off on a routine that can kind of change our perspective on the day where, you wake up on the wrong side of the bed and all you see is shit in your day and you're neglecting all the positive things. That's something that we all kind of deal with. And that is a way to self-disclose and to build rapport with a client is, dude, life happens to me too. Like I have bad days. I have
to
days where I don't
yourself,
want to be
not
here.
separate yourself from them. To include yourself instead of just sitting there and saying, "I'm here and you're there and I'm teaching you."
Right.
It's to say, "Listen, we're all in the boat together. I just spend a little more time paddling than you, but we're all in the boat together."
Listen.
And by the way, she slid it in as a hint. But if you go to www.givemeganmoney.com, she's saying she needs more money because she's afraid if she has a car accident.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
kidding.
all you
I'm kidding.
talk.
Actually, if it's out there, so Megan somewhere is going to make money. It ain't her. It ain't her.
So you can see that this podcast is about the same approach but different approach. Okay, is what it is, and they really do mesh with one another because what you need is a comprehensive program, and that's what we do at JC's. A comprehensive, best we can. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. Okay, but we do, and we do really care about the clients.
So I want to kind of piggyback off our program because that was brought up to me earlier. So this is what kind of separates us, I think, is that when we're talking about holistic, there is a clinical component. So treatment centers, when they first originated, it was very 12-step based, which is great because that laid a great foundation. But the clinical work behind it, that came over time. And that's still evolving right now.
Yes.
So the one thing that JC's does, and this is one of the things that drew me to it, is that we're one of the few treatment centers that you not only are getting actual psychotherapy groups, actual process-oriented groups that teach you different skills, coping skills, triggers, warning signs. We do CBT groups, conflict resolution groups, interpersonal skills, healthy living. There's a lot of different topics that we hit. We don't do those in group though.
Oh no. No, it's individual.
And then
That
you
would
get
be
your
fun.
individual therapy. But the nice part is we also have have a spiritual component. So the clients in the evening times, they also get access to outside meetings, whether to get them connected to the community, because the opposite of addiction is connection. So keeping them connected right off the beginning, getting them connected to their spirituality side as well is super important. So now they're working on themselves, they get the connection back to their spirituality, and then they're also incorporating the wellness component. So we kind of take it up to that degree to where we do incorporate all three. Our clients are slammed from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. at night, and it keeps them engaged. They get tired, but they push through it. But because there's so many different things going on for them to be exposed to, so they can learn that balance.
I've been teaching there for, I don't know how long, longer than you've been there, but I've been teaching there. And one thing I've never heard the clients say, I've heard them say, I didn't like lunch today. I've heard them say, oh man, we got to do this tomorrow. I've heard them say things like that. I've never heard anybody say they're bored. And in a lot of treatment centers, that's one of the things that I come across. People are like, I'm bored. There's nothing to do.
Well,
here at JC, you guys fill it up. You're either doing work in there or you're interacting with the community or you're doing different things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like real life. You don't have time to sit around and just not do shit. You should be doing stuff. And that's a big thing, right,
well,
John?
I can tell. Sure. Let me tell you something. what's really funny, I was one of the first treatment centers back many years ago to incorporate cell phones and computers into the treatment center. And everybody was against it. Oh, they're going to call their drug dealer. Oh, they're going to get defocused. They were right. They will get the focus. But you know what? That's how you teach them. Okay, it's right there. And not only that, who are they going to call? Back home. Okay,
Well,
we used to call it dial a pain.
But not just that, like nowadays, there's so many resources on the cell phone as well. Like I have a lot of therapists who actually educate the clients. There's different journaling apps that they can utilize. This is a generation who is super connected to technology. And they're actually a lot more times comfortable with staying connected to their technology than actually connecting in person. So it's a great step in the right direction to kind of utilize, hey, you like being on your phone and you're pretty technology oriented. You don't really like handwriting for various reasons because whatever. So why don't we try to utilize this a little more? There's a lot of accountability in these apps as well.
Not only that, we bring them back in, instead of, look, if you're in a bubble and now you got to go home,
right?
You get slammed. So now the bubble is no longer there and home is connected to the phone.
Exactly.
And now
part of your world is now in the treatment center.
Now we can work on the issues that you have at home. That was the whole idea.
That's a smart point.
Well, because that's what used to drive me nuts about residential
and I'm sorry,
treatment.
Unless you're in a lockdown facility,
right,
with shock collars, they don't need their phones to find a way to make a connection.
Right.
If they want to, they will. Mm-hmm. The phone makes it easier. Yes, it does. But the rewards outweigh that risk because you guys both said it very well. There's great uses for the phone, and we need to be connected to the outside world so we can prepare them better for the outside world. You treat them in a bubble, then let them out. Listen, I don't know if you ever saw The Boy in the Bubble, the movie with John Travolta, but he's great in the bubble. The minute you let him out, he dies from an infection.
But here's what happens. Yes, do they get on their phone and group, or they try to do that? Well, the facilitator needs to control that because then they got to learn boundaries. Okay, they got to learn integrity. They got to learn.
It's a learning opportunity.
It's a learning opportunity.
It's what? Yeah, it's what I said. Learning opportunity.
Once you talk to me, it'll be better.
All these things. Now, I mean, we're blowing through our time here, and JC Recovery's got a lot going on. I want people to talk about this, but let's talk about treatment and just things in general. We're a lot different than we were back in 1980. We're a lot different. Things have changed a lot. We still got a long way to go. Where do you think we still have the biggest issues as far as how we treat clients and what we're doing? Where do you think the biggest holes are? Either the holes in the knowledge, things we don't know yet, or holes in the ability to give them what they need?
I want to tell you the biggest problem. Reimbursement. That's the biggest problem. I'll tell you why. Because if you don't get enough money to treat the clients the way they needed to be treated, how are you going to help them? Okay, that's number one. Okay, problem is they keep using the same methodology, okay, and then they keep lowering the money, and what they're doing also is they over-regulating. So now when you regulate so much, you got to pay more, you got to do more, you got to get different kinds of clinicians, different kinds of things. So the money's down here, and the cost just keeps going this way. So what's happening in the industry, it's becoming people running through treatment. It's warehousing. It's not treatment. It's warehousing.
Yeah.
See, and that's the biggest problem, I believe.
Megan, what do you think?
I think quality of care. If you don't have appropriate directors or clinicians who are well versed in being able to help other clinicians be able to deliver these services appropriately, we get into the field and we'll train you how to do a job. Do your documentation in this time frame. This is how you meet with your clients all week. That's very typical. But teaching somebody how to understand the bigger picture of the system of care, so they can maximize the time in which we have. Not for nothing, PHP is a 30-day program for us roughly, and you get 4 individual therapy sessions in that time. One of them includes your bio. So yes, you're getting a lot of group therapy, and that's wonderful and great, and you get a lot of experiences, but that personal time, that one-on-one time, I have to be able to maximize the quality of that to the best of my ability for not only just my clients, my clinicians as well. And that's a barrier for me is the time frame of treatment. I do think that.
Well, also we do an IOP. Okay.
I understand that,
And
but
you can
again,
carry
the
it over if
insurance,
there is-
IOP is intensive outpatient. For those who
Yeah.
don't know, it's going to be 5 days a week if the insurance covers it.
but that's the problem is that now clients are trying to access care 5 days a week, but they also have to work full time. And this, I think, goes back to one of my biggest issues about what we were talking about earlier is balancing everything. You know, society today, it's extremely expensive. The economy's crap. You know, I'm in a life where I have 2 people having to work. That's why, you know, I work well over 40 hours a week. I still have 3 children at home. So to be able to balance going to the gym and eating healthy and cooking my meals when I have children and this and that, like there's not enough time in the day.
All right, sell the kids. And then, no, I'm sorry. Just because my mom did
Put
that
them to
me.
work. I don't care. Put them to work. I don't care if they're 3 years old. Let them wash dishes.
But I think that's a big barrier too, is, you know, life continues to go on. And I think when we're talking about clients questioning everything, when they're sitting there, they're so caught up in everything that they lost and they want to get everything back again, because again, this we're in a society of instant gratification anyway, where we're just gonna medicate everything rather than work through something that takes time. But that's a culture we have to change, right? Like that's an actual societal culture we have.
It's
to
the same
change
culture that creates so many deaths from fentanyl.
Mhm.
Every other country has fentanyl in it. Why is the United States dying at rates that are 10 times every other country? Why? Because we have a culture that tells us if you have a headache, take a pill. If you
Mhm.
can't wake up, take a pill. You can't sleep, take a pill. You do everything else. We're in a pill culture, including what we're doing with our treatment now, which is putting people on medications for super long periods of time.
Right.
I'm not even talking about addiction anymore. I'm talking about any medication.
Well, you see,
They
here,
put it on people too long. But let me ask this though, real quick. I want to take 2 things that you guys said together. John, you said overregulated. There are too many things going on. And you're saying about clinicians not having the time. You put these things together, overregulation and making people do so much peripheral work that has nothing to do with client care,
Mhm.
and forcing people to do this, overregulating, takes time away from the clients. It's like they're creating this mess that doesn't even allow you to take care of the clients
Then
in a proper
I'm too
way.
busy
Am I right?
justifying them being there than for me actually being able to do the work with them.
John, you see a client, you know exactly what they need because of your years of experience. But you got to jump through hoops to be able to supply that to them, unless you're just doing it on your own, which you guys do sometimes. But as a treatment, to make that a part of your treatment modality, it's impossible to justify under their rules.
Mhm.
But they know it works. So what's the answer now? I mean,
well,
are we
you know,
going to
I'm gonna
war
tell
with
you-
the
I'm gonna-
insurance
I'm gonna tell
companies?
you
What do
what
we
the-
need to
I'm
do?
going to tell you what the answer is. Really.
Yeah.
It's about time that all the treatment centers wake up and band together and go to Washington and create some changes. Because the bottom line is treatment centers are getting raped. And I'll tell you what happened. Insurance companies got raped years ago.
Yeah.
Okay? Now it's their turn.
Yeah.
Right? And who suffers? The addict. Okay? And the alcoholic. See, and the problem is most treatment centers do not have clinicians. Most women, if you really dig down deep, have an eating disorder, compulsive overeater, and well, that's a fact. Oh yeah,
Oh no, I believe it's a fact. I'm just not one of them.
huh?
I'm just not one of them.
No,
I
not
do very
everybody. I said, that's not everybody.
What the hell are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
The majority, I'm like, no.
But then you got
Yeah.
gambling.
Yeah.
You got sex addiction. Okay.
Shopping.
All these other addictions
have an answer for that.
really don't. Oh, hello. Really don't get addressed. My phone even talks for me.
Yeah.
But you see, sometimes they're not even addressed in a lot of treatment centers. We address
Lifestyle addictions. They're
Yeah.
not brought up by
They're not
many
brought up.
places.
No.
Mhm.
You know why? Because they don't understand that once these people walk out your door, let's say they're not going to pick up alcohol or drugs. They will pick up other habits
Mhm.
if they're not made aware of what they are, what can happen.
Right.
They'll start compulsively gambling. You see people getting out of treatment, going right to work, and sometimes by treatment centers that are putting them in call centers, and they get addicted to making that money.
Mhm.
And they run it and run it and run it until what? Something crashes,
Till they
something happens,
burn
and then
out.
they relapse.
That's right.
So there's so much that people need to know. We all know this. Clinicians know this. Doctors know this. Guess what? The insurance companies know it too, but they're not paying.
They're not paying for it.
They're
And
not helping.
it's like changing seats on the Titanic. What addicts normally
Yeah.
do. I never met an addict that only has one addiction. They always have a sub addiction. Oh, but that's not so bad. I don't wind up in jail. I don't wind up dead from that addiction. But they destroy their life, and then they don't get enough bang for their buck in that sub addiction. They run right back to their main addiction.
But that's the thing is you have to wait till you're in full blown chaos mode before insurance be like, okay, I'll give you 30 days or
Right.
something. They're not going to give you that when
Oh,
you're
the guy's
when you're on
working.
that
The guy's
bench.
doing drugs for 20 years. Let's give him 30 days. Give me a break.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. How do you turn that around?
How do you uncondition and recondition somebody after all that time in 30 days?
See, a treatment center, listen, I did a whole piece on this. If the insurance companies were smart, they think they're smart, but if they were really smart, when clients have that insurance card, they hop from treatment center to treatment center to treatment center. They're not getting well, and maybe sooner or later they wind up dying. Okay. Meanwhile, the insurance companies are paying for all this. If they do a proper assessment, and anywhere from 60 to 90 days, depending on the severity of the illness, they allow them to stay in residential treatment or PHP with housing, where they're in a system where they can't be running around everywhere. Okay. They have an opportunity to get better. And what I designed was, if they should relapse after the 90 days or 60 days, they go back into treatment for 2 weeks. And if they relapse again, their insurance doesn't cover for a whole year. Then they have to go to a public program. And to me, that will save the insurance companies tons of money.
But they got to put the money up front. They got to place their bets up front and give them enough time up front and the right treatment up front so that they don't have to relapse.
Well, you know what it is?
You got to put it up
It's
front.
like doing a heart surgery. You got 5 minutes to do the heart surgery.
Do you know what the insurance companies does? They say, okay, we know that 60 days in the program will work. Okay, but this is their first time. So let's try them out at 20 days and see how they do. Why would you do that? If you already know the answer is longer and you start them out at 20, then that doesn't work. Then we're going to give them 24. Then that doesn't work. Then we're going to give them 28. Then that doesn't work.
See,
You're spending more money.
My theory is they're hoping they die in between.
That's kind of what they're betting
That's
on.
what it looks like.
That's
I'm
the
not
good
saying
bet.
that's what it is.
But then we also have to bring up the idea is it depends on the insurance, right? Like if you have this policy, they'll only do this. If you have this one, they'll extend you to this amount of time. So you're basically, if you're able to pay for a decent policy, you're able to get extended period of time without an issue.
Well, that's true.
And who should be getting the best medical care of anybody in our country? Our vets. And guess what? The insurance they get for mental health and for addictions.
Did you see the
Garbage.
compact that just came out?
No.
Look up the Compact Act. No, vets are now able to access a lot more.
They can.
It's
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to scream
I'll
unless they
send you the
get
article.
unless vets get gold standard on everything. We're not doing our job.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
I think
just
that's a
important.
factor we have to look at too. It's like, people, if you think about somebody who is full blown into their addiction a lot of the time, and we all know this, they've lost everything. They have no income, they've been struggling on the streets and all that. Well, they can't afford to have a decent insurance policy, but they can afford to have one that'll give them some sort of services, but they're the ones that are in the highest need. This is why I'm a big advocate for, clients with SPMIs who have Medicaid, who they have Medicaid to be able to access care. So I'm very passionate about that because they're the ones that need it the most, but they get this standard of access to health care.
Well, there's another issue that clients do not understand. If they're not in group, or they look to like vacate group or hide in the bathroom or do something, whatever, okay, we don't get paid for the group. It's real simple, okay? And they don't learn how to deal with life on life's terms. So it's a double bang for your money here. Okay?
John, but you know as well as anybody else, that doesn't fall on the client. That falls on the staff to motivate them properly. When they come through the door, how are you expecting them to be there for 3 days after 6 years on the street with a needle in their arm?
And how about they're still whacked out from detox?
And you expect them to sit still in a group for an hour and a half? We've got to be pay attention to each individual client and understand. Listen, Bobby can't sit that long. So Bobby, go stand in the back of the room and do this. And you can walk back and forth and you can listen. Nobody said your ass is connected to your brain. You don't have to be sitting in a chair to learn. But you have to look at individuals and you have to take the time to do that. But you're right. If they're not following the rules and if they're not doing certain things, you're not going to get paid.
Well, not only that, and we don't get paid, how are we going to treat them? But
exactly.
There's another issue, a big mistake they made. And no offense to the mental health people. The mental health people and the substance
Once you apologize ahead of time, you're in trouble.
Oh,
Go ahead.
The mental health people and the substance abuse people have been fighting for years. Who's going to run the show? Okay. They had, when you get a certified addiction professional, okay, could run groups, they could sign and do all this stuff. That over time, that changed. And that cut out a lot of people that were recovering addicts that went into the field. And the pushback was they don't know how to deal with mental health clients. To me, that was baloney because most of the mental health clients are addicts.
Yeah.
Okay. Or if that's the case, then train them how to deal with mental health. Put
That's-
it in the thing.
That is the difference right there. I agree with you. The training, because they are
Yeah.
trained in. Now, this is my piece as somebody who is certified in both.
Well,
So
see,
I'm
that's
both.
what you see. Here's the thing. It's not just about certified in both. They cut out a lot of addicts that could just, that they didn't go into the mental health thing for years to learn how many years you had to go to school?
Well, I had my bachelor's, my master's. So my bachelor's didn't really teach me anything about counseling. My master's did this 2 years.
Okay, so but that's 2 years, so it's more than 2 years, it's bachelor's and all that.
Mm-hmm.
When I got my certification, all you needed was a GED.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you needed a bachelor's.
Mhm.
Now you need a master's,
Which costs a lot of money.
which costs a lot of money. Okay, and you got a lot of people that are really, really good at helping addicts. One addict helping another. That's what the program's about, the 12-step program, right? That were really, really, really good. And then you had a handful of them that weren't really good, didn't know ethics, they didn't know balance, boundaries, and all this stuff. They didn't. The education piece didn't take them another step further. So now all those people, okay, no longer could do group. They no longer could do a lot of things in treatment. And if you're not, and now here's what they regulated. If you don't have a license, okay, you can't do group because then you can't get certified for insurance.
Right.
So now you have that problem. So
the thing
and then
is,
you don't have enough
like-
therapists to do the work.
Thank you. They're already overwhelmed with paperwork. They're overwhelmed with over documentation.
Oh my goodness.
And now they got to run the groups because you're not allowing any other facilitators to run the groups. It's got to be a therapist or MSW or whatever it might be. And that costs more.
Yep.
And they're so they're raising the standards. You got to have more of this and more of that. You got to spend more money, but we're going to pay you less.
Mhm.
And you got to give the standard of care.
And you got to justify it super hard every day.
There's, I think, John, you're right in a sense that we need to kind of come together. But here's the thing. We don't even have a standard to rate success in the country. Each treatment center has their own standard. I've heard treatment centers say, we got a 90% success rating.
Yeah, I know.
What does that mean? They're sober for 90% of the time they're in your building?
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
That's
Because there is no standard. SAMHSA should have a standard. National Institute of Health should have a standard where they say 1 year of abstinence from all substances or this or that. They got to create a standard so that we can all measure. There is no measurable outcomes.
correct.
And nobody's doing follow-up outcomes,
None.
which we've been threatening since G&G. They've been talking about
Well,
that.
remember,
They've never done it.
Remember, we did it at G&G.
Well, we did it at
did
G&G,
it
but
for
we
a
thought it was
year.
going to be a national standard, and it never
it
became
wasn't.
one.
We did it at G&G, but you see,
Yeah.
we didn't do our own outcome studies. We hired Blum and then you guys gave them the information,
Right.
okay?
And we wrote the papers and
Right,
did that.
and
Yeah.
all that stuff. So our outcomes were incredible, and we followed it for a year. But see, most people don't know how outcomes are done. What they do is they call the addict up and they go, "Hey, Johnny, how you doing?" "Yeah, man, I'm doing great." "Oh, he's clean."
It's self-reporting. One, that's a problem. Two, you can only base it on who answers the phone. And the people who are relapsed are not going to answer the phone. Okay. Three, most people fall off the face of the earth once they leave, and there's no contact information at all.
So if you remember,
So the only people you're going to reach, the chances, if they're answering the phone, you're already thinking there's a 50-50 chance they're probably doing good, 50-50. And then you're going to get some different outcomes. It's skewed. We don't know how to measure it. We don't.
right.
But
we
it
did.
doesn't even matter if you have a measurement system because there's nothing that says this is the
But
standard.
Scotty,
Nothing.
you're right. But here's what we did. If you remember,
But we have standards on how to justify your ability to access that treatment while you're there.
Thank you.
Limiting standards we have.
You see-
We don't have
see,
success standards.
Based on the ASAM.
There is a
Your
way.
ASAMs.
There is a way to do this that we did. We licensed, or we went into contractual agreement with 3/4 warehouses where the people that were in state, a lot of them came from out of state, but they stayed in state. All right. We wanted them to drop a urine and we wanted to know their behaviors while they were in their sober living. Then they would come to our aftercare program. We would drop a urine on them. We would eyeball the eyeball so we know what's going on. And we could tell by their participation and also by their urines, okay, and also by where they're living, because addicts may act great in group, but when they go home, they're a whole different ballgame, okay? And what we did for out-of-towners, Dr. Blum, okay, as for people who don't know, he's the geneticist who found the main addiction gene, came up with an idea because out of Berkeley, I think it was, they had this new study, this beta study about tonalities, inflections in people's voices. They get to remember.
Yeah, I remember
They
that.
could say
Yeah, I remember
if they're
that.
lying. So when we would call, if the addict got on the phone, which was very difficult to get an addict on the phone, but when you did, okay, we could tell if they're lying or not. It was 95% correct.
But look at how much you had to invest to get that so accurate. And with
Yeah,
what you're
exactly.
saying with reimbursement and money and everything.
No, we didn't get reimbursed for that. We did it on our own.
Right.
That's
but
what I'm saying.
you're
No, most
already
people
in a
can't afford to do
financially
that.
better place anyway to be able to put that out there. What we're saying is that it's so limiting for
It
us to
should
be
be
able
a
to
standard
elevate
of care.
it. We agree.
Thank you. We agree. And that's what we're saying.
But they
We're
have
not
to
putting
first
any-
know what the standard is.
That's it. We need something to say, this is what the standard is, so that not every treatment center could say, we've got this, we've got that, we got a success rate of this. It's like, but what is that held against?
That's why we did
You
third
know?
party. If we do our own, who's going to believe you? Okay.
At least, you know what? We'll figure that out after we create a standard.
Right.
But first, we need to lean into SAMHSA. We need to lean into NIH. We need to lean into the Department of Health and say, we need something where we can say this is a quantifiable standard that's held up to scrutiny and that we can look at. And that way, insurance companies, we can report it to insurance companies, we can report it to whatever.
Scotty, they don't even pay for aftercare.
I know.
Okay. How in the world in 30 days, 60 days, with no aftercare, no follow-up care available for these people that want to get well, how's that going to work?
I want to take a moment. Guys, this has been one of my favorite shows we've been doing with John and with Megan here. This is great. Having these kind of arguments, these kind of roundtables, these kind of discussions, that's how things change. If you have any questions, you have any thoughts, and you're watching this, please leave a comment. We will watch it. We will follow the comments, and we'll make sure we try to answer your questions on following shows. But, or if you want to get more involved, there's a lot of different resources in your communities that you could go to. You can go to one of your local rehabs. If you just want to get involved and learn more about what you could do, or what information you can get, there's RCOs, which are recovery community organizations. Is that what it is? Yeah, recovery community organizations in your area. A lot of things you could do. But most importantly, share this with your friends and keep
I guess
following
we're running
the
out of,
show.
we ran out of
We're
time.
running out of time, but I just want to say this is the kind of discussions that I think people are interested in. The
Absolutely.
stuff that they're sitting there just saying, and we'll end with this question, we're going to agree that most treatment centers don't have a huge success rate, even the best ones. It's as far as you would, if you measured it in any other business,
Nobody would pay them.
nobody would be there. If your heart surgeon was successful only 10% of the time, you're not going to use him. If your mechanic only fixed your car 10%, but our treatment centers, we're hovering at that 10% because we're not able to deliver what we need to deliver. People are sitting at home and they're saying, how are we going to change this? I know we talked about a lot of it, but just your personal, what do you think? I'm going to ask both of you. How are we going to change this? And what do we need to do first?
I only
to
can
start
tell you
that?
what we do at JC's. We have an aftercare program.
Right.
They can come 2 nights a week. Okay. They come to my partner, Stevie, who's a pastor who does faith-based, which is incredible. And then the other night is the alumni night, I think.
Stevie B, also known as the happiest guy in the world.
Yeah, Stevie's
Yes.
incredible.
Yes.
So, we do the best we can
Mhm.
under the circumstances from which we were thrown into. Other treatment centers, unfortunately, some of them don't go that far. Not all of them, but some of them.
But even you, with the restraints and everything you have, you're not as successful as you can be.
No.
So what needs to change first? What's the first step in making changes that do you think people need to think about, or that you guys as an industry need to think about?
The insurance got to look at preventative, okay, instead of after the fact.
So is this
See,
a sit
that's
down, a
what-
round
yeah,
table? Is
That's
this a
that's our listen. That's us. That's the way of treating people. We look at people after they're broken instead of doing, we look at them before they get broken.
Yeah.
There are hardly any resources. People don't even know they're there. Okay, there's a lot of resources, but people don't even know they're there because nobody advertises it or markets it.
Well, and I think that's a societal push too. It's like, we have healthcare. I mean, to be honest, like I don't go to my PCP every year, and I should. It's not normal for me. And that I think is a piece of it. Normalizing, accessing regular healthcare access before it becomes a problem. We're a very reactive society. We wait until it's a problem we cannot ignore because we allow the pressures of everything else to kind of overtake us on a regular basis.
We take care of our car before we take care of ourselves.
If our bone ain't sticking out of the skin, we don't care.
Right.
If I can rub some dirt on it and cover the bruise, I'm good. I mean, geez.
Well, I think I don't want to make this too long because then people move on.
No. We have about 2 minutes. We got to wrap up. I just want to say that I think one of the things we need to start thinking about is better education earlier in life. Better education
in the schools
about mental health. And if we start with that, so that children can identify the difference between depression and sadness,
right?
So that they can understand the difference between anxiety and just kind of feeling a little off. To understand and normalize those things. And when you go home and mom and dad are in a certain way, that you can understand that you're not damaged all the time. Less damaged children coming out of childhood is going to obviously affect and have less addiction in adulthood.
I wanted to put group therapy because I used to do talks in the schools.
Yeah.
I wanted to put group therapy in the schools.
I just feel like we should have a normalized emotional wellness curriculum in the schools.
Thank you. It's more important. I mean, they come up with all these other classes that they have that don't teach you shit about anything. And we need higher level this and higher level that. We need this, and we got to create new math because 2 plus 2 is no longer 4.
37th in the world for education.
We're what?
37th.
Yeah.
The richest country in the world.
We should be number 1 or 2.
Is 37th. We don't even teach people how to write a check.
That's right.
We don't teach people anything about life.
I took home economics.
So did I.
When I was young. I also took woodshop because I had to butch up after that. I took home economics. They taught us how to bake.
Yep.
Economics. There was no economics involved. There was no writing checks.
We had to practice writing
taking care of bank statements and stuff like that. They didn't teach us that. They don't teach. Well, I come from city schools. They taught us how to bake and then how to bake a saw into a cake so we could send it to our dads in prison.
But that stuff
you don't want to eat his cake.
No, you don't want to eat my cake. Guys, thank you so much. Megan, final thought. People out there are maybe they got somebody that they care about who's struggling and they're afraid to piss them off by asking for help.
Well, we do interventions.
What do you want to tell them?
I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. It's like, it's scary to start creating the change that you need to have in your life, but you got to get out of that comfort level. I'm very grateful my mother, after 63 years, finally put herself in a treatment after years of pushing. And at the end of the day, if you don't say anything or if you don't keep pushing them, things are going to happen regardless. So you got to do at least make an attempt. Thank you. And John, we just said that treatment centers aren't perfect. We don't have the best rates sometimes, but you got to do something. You cannot not go. Listen, you have to do something.
Maybe they're not the greatest and the best in the world, but you need to go to treatment because you'll learn some tools. And we have a third rule. A third of the people is going to get well, regardless of what they learned in treatment, because they really want this.
That's it.
If you go after treatment like you went after your drugs, you will be successful.
And we appreciate John, Megan, for JC Recovery to put themselves out there and say, hey, listen, we're doing the best we can. We need help and we need to do more, and we're going to keep learning every day. If you go to a treatment center and they say we got it all figured out, run fast, people, run fast. You need to go to the places that say we're doing our best and we're making strides and we change every day just so that we can do better jobs. That's where you want to be. John, Megan, thank you guys.
All right, guys.
Thank you all out there. Don't forget to like this show. Check out johnjgiordano.com and learn more about everything that John's doing.
Yeah, go to YouTube also. I'm all over YouTube, guys.
That's right. Go to YouTube. And it's not just the times he got arrested. It's not. There's a lot of other good stuff in there. He's got cats and videos and all sorts of stuff.
We don't eat the cats, by the way.
Everybody take care now. Bye-bye.